On today's show, my friend Ben Pfeifer is back for part one of a two-part conversation about the NBA draft in advance of March Madness, and it's coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1934 of Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday in mid-March. Today's show is brought to you by the folks at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And I also want to tell you this out of the podcast, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcasts. That includes Apple and Spotify. It also includes YouTube. So please like this video as you're watching it on that platform. And crucially, tell your friends and family about the podcast. And I'm joined today for part one of a two-part chat by Ben Pfeifer. Ben's been a guest on this podcast many times talking about the NBA draft and lower levels of basketball, et cetera, et cetera. And it's about that time. The NCAA tournament already technically began on Tuesday, but it begins really in earnest on Thursday with the wall-to-wall stuff there. So a good time to talk about the draft a little bit through the eyes of the NCAA tournament. And by the way, the Hawks do not play again until Saturday, which is part of the reason why I'm doing this as well. There's no game. It's a bit of a quirk scheduling-wise. They had a nice win on Tuesday night in Charlotte that I broke down, by the way, in episode 1933 that dropped Tuesday night. But in the meantime, I want to post this relatively quickly because the Hawks, again, not the Hawks. Hawks are not playing. But in the meantime, there is a ton of prospect action to watch on Thursday and on Friday. So to kind of bridge the gap a little bit between the two things, this is a two-parter and a fun conversation. This is part one you're listening to right now, and just want to put that out there. Part two should be available at the same time as this podcast. So when you're done listening to part one, part two should be available in this same feed. A couple PSAs here. Again, it's been busy on the show recently talking about the Hawk stuff for the most part, highs, lows, everything in between. That game on Tuesday was much more fun than the game on Sunday, for example. Also a PSA here. I recorded this with Ben on Monday. So the only thing that was actually kind of maybe out of date is the fact that we talked about Miles Byrd of San Diego State at one point, and he's actually played Tuesday night. So keep that in mind. Everything else, just for the record, we talk about Kongwu on this podcast. I am higher on a Kongwu than Ben is. Things happen. He's here to talk about the draft for the most part, and I love Ben. He'll be back, I'm sure, in a couple of months to do even more on the draft when we know where the Hawks should be picking in the meantime. And one more thing before we dive in with Ben. The Hawks might have two picks in this draft between 13 and 25. So it's going to be a pretty interesting stretch here of about 3 months. Obviously not quite wrapping up until the Hawks are done playing, but I like to sprinkle a little bit of draft coverage along the way. So here's what that is going to be. And one more time, part two available at the end of this podcast. Stay tuned. And here we go with myself and Ben. I am joined now for a semi-annual chat with my friend Ben Pfeifer. Ben,
biannual at this
biannual, however you want to put that. It's it'll be more than once this year. This is my second podcast about the 2025 draft. I did one with Brian Schroeder, our mutual friend, 3 months ago. Because during the season, you know how this goes on a team podcast. It's for a team that's still trying to win, people aren't super into draft content. But hey, it's the week to do it. It's March Madness week.
But it's also once you hit that wall in the season where it's I don't know exactly what's going to be happening with the Hawks in the play-in. But
yeah. And it's been you know this, but it's been a weird year overall because the Hawks are both trying to win and also without much of a ceiling. So it's this very interesting thing. They don't have their own picks. There's no reason to ever not try to win this year. But most teams in the league are either all in trying to win or all in not trying to win, and the Hawks are neither of those things. So it's been kind of an interesting
They
season.
have other teams' picks. They don't really control their destiny,
Correct.
Right?
They don't have their own pick till 2028.
I find it hilarious that they're well under 500. And they're 7th seed, right?
They are currently, as we are talking, the 7th seed. We're recording this Monday, which I already said. That could change. They could be the 8th seed by the time it's posts, but not below the 8th seed because the East play-in race is
and they're not
fairly
getting above
dire.
7th seed, unfortunately. Maybe
no, it's like 2% or something to get above the 7th seed. So
they're 5 games behind the Pistons or whatever.
Yeah, the Pistons are playing well. Shouts to them. But the Hawks' range is very wide. It's basically, it could be as high as 13 if the Kings get in the play-in and lose, and that pick conveys. And then you have the Lakers pick, which could be somewhere between 21 and 26. I don't know, 25. They've been losing recently, but something like that. Gone are the days where I held out some hope that the Lakers might not be good. And maybe be in the play-in, and then they
Yeah.
then they got Luka and won like 100
We had
games in a
thoughts
row,
about that about the Lakers. We had thoughts about the Clippers picks not conveying them for teams, and it's like, eh.
So the pick's coming. We know that. It's just probably going to be in the 20s. So all that said, the range is very wide. I mean, we could talk if you would like to about the top of the draft. We know Cooper Flag is going to go where whoever wins the lottery. We kind of know that right now. I feel like we know that.
Unless he goes back to school.
That was a funny discourse.
Every once in a while, I think like today I was scrolling through my YouTube recommended, and there's like a video of like why Cooper Flag is going like every once in a while I'll see someone doing like a why Cooper Flag is going back to dominate college basketball, and I'm like, are you that gullible, really?
Yeah. Look, I
don't know.
In the pre-NIL era, it would have been even more silly. I guess if you want to say some Duke booster gives him $10 million to come back, like, okay. But it's not probably going to happen.
I mean, NIL money is good, but it's not first overall pick money.
It is not, especially when you factor in, this, but like there's the shoe deal he'll get. There's the endorsement money he'll get. It's not just the rookie scale contract for a guy like Cooper Flag. It's a lot more
baseline money for a player of this caliber.
So that's gonna happen. Also, prayers up for Cooper's ankle. I hope he's ready to go.
Seems like he should be fine. I think based on the reporting.
Yeah, it didn't look great, but not awful either. It's just an ankle sprain. Now, just an ankle sprain. I use this example all the time, at least when I talk about ankle sprains. When I covered the Hawks probably 10 years ago now, Mike Muscala had an ankle sprain that legitimately he was out for 3.5 months. It was like a grade 3 ankle sprain, and he literally was just a sprain. He was out for 3, and he was trying to come back. It wasn't like Brandon Ingram when they're just like being extremely careful with him. The Hawks were trying to win, and he was out for 3.5 months. So things could happen. But
let's hope so.
Do you have? So the other, okay, let's start at the top, I guess, and we'll go from there. Disclaimer, everybody: the Hawks are not going to be able to get into the top 5 of this draft. So we'll be quick on this. Do you have a clear number 2?
Yeah, Harper, definitely.
Okay, we agree on that. I thought that was the case. I just wanted to ask you. And look, it's very weird. I got a text today from a great friend of mine who watches a lot of basketball. Is not like in the industry like we are, but I trust a lot. And he was like, "Wait, Rutgers is not in the tournament?" And I was like, "That's correct. They're not in the tournament." He's like, "How does that happen?" I'm like, "Well, here's a long list that I won't get into right now. But yes, the team that has 2 top 5 potential picks." It's not there.
If you told me before the season that Rutgers didn't make the tournament, I would have been like, yeah, that's kind of what I would have expected.
Yeah, but I mean, you and I know that, and Rutgers, they were built strange. But if all you knew was, hey, they had 2 of the top 7, conservatively, top 7 players in the draft, and they're both freshmen one and dones, and they don't make the tournament, it's like a very strange thing to happen. Because you and I do like some one and dones, like Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, like this has happened before with one guy. But to have 2 of them go to a place that you would expect them to go and have them not be good.
I mean, it's tough when like the one guy who is like the big college megastar has weird illness and injury stuff, and the other big prospect is just like very inconsistent, and then you have a bad roster around them. It just wasn't a formula for success. So I wouldn't like hold it against either of them for their season.
Yeah, we totally agree on that. I just want to at least acknowledge that. Like, they're not in the tournament. Another guy that I really like, I think you like as well to some degree, is Colin Murray Boyles from South Carolina.
They're probably even good enough for the NIT, are they?
Yeah, they were one of the literally 2 teams in the SEC to make the tournament, and they were one of them.
Maybe CBI? I don't know.
Yeah, so, but all I have to say, I'm saying these names because the vast majority of guys from college who are interesting enough to go in the top 25 where the Hawks have draft picks are in the tournament, other than the Rutgers guys. Murray Boyles, if you want to go a little bit lower, I like Thomas Sorber a lot from Georgetown. He's not in the tournament.
He's a little injured, so.
Yeah, he's banged up. Maybe Rasheer Fleming is a guy that's like on my first round list at St. Joe's that didn't make the tournament, but that's it. There's like 5 guys out of the top 30 plus that didn't make the tournament. Everybody else is in. So there's a lot of stuff to watch.
Like I have a random guy or 2 that most people don't in the top 30 range that isn't in the tournament, but like that's par for the course. It's a very good year for prospects in March Madness because of how the landscape shaked out, and it being a very like US focused class. So
yeah. No, I was gonna ask you that to sort of set the table a little bit. There are teams that are obvious people are going to watch for draft purposes. Duke is number one example of that with not only Cooper, but also Common Malawak and Kon Kneuppel. And even they have some depth guys too that could go in the top 40 if they.
Sion James, that's a guy.
Yep, that's a guy. So they have Duke's the obvious one, but a lot of the talent is spread out decently well. Like you got teams that have one guy that we'll talk about at least. Maryland's got Derik Queen, Michigan State's got Jase Richardson. Jeremiah Fears in Oklahoma is kind of by himself in this discussion. Michigan's got Danny Wolf. Like there's all kinds of like one team, one player guys, and then there's a bunch of couple of guys. So it's kind of widespread. And if you are someone who does not like college basketball very much and only watches it for the draft, there's a lot of games to watch. It feels like in the next few days, and it won't be hard to find them either. Like they're very accessible. You know what time they start. It's like, hey, I want to watch Derik Queen today. All right, well, here's the Maryland game. It's kind of straight ahead.
I mean, even just looking at like you can literally scroll down like Marquette, New Mexico. You got Cam Jones and Donovan Dent, who's much fringier than Jones, but still an awesome guard. Like you said, Jase as well. Just so many guys. Like you got Kalkbrenner in any of the Creighton games. Edgecombe is going to be playing. Might match up with Duke at some point. Alabama has guys like. Pretty much everyone, like a lot of these teams, even like the lesser level ones, have someone worth watching. Now, there's a lot of good teams in the tournament who aren't necessarily prospect teams. Like St. John's has some fringy guys, or like Purdue or Clemson, or like Arizona. Even like, actually, Carter Bryant's probably better than that. But point being, I do agree that there are a lot of good prospect games. It's a potential matchups I really like for the first couple rounds as well. So,
I'm looking forward to like casting a wide net. Is why we're doing this. We'll talk about a lot of different players. Probably won't go super long on anybody on this one, and I'll invite Ben to come back later in the process to do our usual deep dives on some Hawksy guys. And look, the Hawks are always a consideration. It's a Hawks podcast. We're still going to do general draft on this show sometimes, and that is this is one of those times. This show is sponsored by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That is over 8 times the national savings average. The perks for the high net worth are not available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive a 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC. As of November 18th, 2024, Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. This show is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like watching basketball live, the energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers on the hardwood, and maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. If you want to check out a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, it filters out all of the stuff that you actually don't want and show you only stuff that you do want, which is the best deals on great seats, the no wasting time with scrolling through thousands of different tickets that you actually are not interested in. And at the Game Time app right now, it's really awesome every single day. There are amazing deals and huge matchups coming up for the Hawks, for future stuff when it comes to the Braves coming up pretty soon, et cetera, across the board. And actually, they highlight super deals as well, give you the best bang for your buck, and they have peace of mind for you as well. With seat views before you buy them, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee you can book with absolute and total confidence at Game Time. Plus, they have NBA, they have college basketball, they have baseball, they have football, they have NASCAR, all the things that you're looking for in the sports space. Plus, they also have comedy, theater, music stuff. It's all there for you at Game Time. Take all the guesswork out of buy tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account at Game Time in the Game Time app and use that promo code. It is LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. Let's go back to Duke, right? Duke's the headliner. Cooper aside, and you can do your Cooper spiel if you want to about him being very good. Kon Kneuppel and Malawak, I get questions about regularly. Like, could either one of them be around still when the Hawks are picking. Because a couple months ago, it seemed like Malawak might fall. And now probably he won't fall. It doesn't seem like. But and you mentioned Sion James. If you're watching Duke, and Duke is obviously projected, in fact, they're the betting favorite to win the whole thing right now, as long as Cooper's okay. Where do you kind of stack up on, in particular, Kneuppel and Malawak as like, are they firm top 10 guys, or could they maybe slide to a Hawksy range, and would they be interesting for Rowland?
Yeah, I don't need to do the flag thing. We can talk more about Cooper next time I come on. I mean, he's like the obvious number one pick. I think he's like one of the best prospects in the last 25 years, pretty clearly. He's awesome, whatever. But yeah, Malawak and Kneuppel, I mean, Kneuppel especially has been pushed really hard by the mainstream like draft guys since preseason, which I don't disagree with necessarily. Like, the rookie skill consensus board, shout out John Shepkevich, who puts this together every year.
It's a very valuable resource. I love that.
Both of those in the bottom, in like the bottom of the top 10. So based on that, like, doesn't seem totally impossible that they could slip out. And at least in my eyes, this draft is like very flat from like 5, 6 to like 13, 14. Like, there's a lot of really, really good players that are just kind of like give you a lot of different things, whether that's upside or safety or different roles. So I don't think it's totally out of the question that a guy like that could fall to the Hawks. And I think both of those would be great players. And I think I feel like Kneuppel in the mocks I do usually is around the late lottery. Malawak I rate very highly, and in any mock I do, in my opinion, it'll be higher. But it wouldn't, I think it's possible. I think outside of like, I think Cooper and the two Rutgers guys are going to be up there. I'd be shocked if they weren't. I think the league is going to love VJ. But after that, I mean, I think there's a pretty big range of what could happen.
It does seem like those four, and by the way, VJ, if you don't know, this is VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. Those four. I mean, Yakashonis feels like he's always up there, but I don't know.
Even though he's kind of falling lately. But still, I mean, even the guys who like are kind of up there usually, it's like there's a lot of variation. Like Fears is Fears is a big riser. Trey Johnson is in there. Like even CMB, I think.
And some of these are weird too. Yeah, some of these are weird too for the Hawks, and we'll talk about this more as we go through the process. But like, I don't think Jeremiah Fears is like a Hawks need guy. Like if with where they are, if he even fell that far, like, doesn't mean they couldn't take him. It'd be a great. I know you're very high on him from what I've seen.
I am, but I would be very surprised if the Hawks took Jeremiah.
Yeah, it would just be a weird fit. So there's always fit stuff. Like there's also this whole conversation. I guess I want to ask you this now actually. There's a debate happening at the moment around the Hawks that you may or may not have seen. Okongwu's been playing very well recently. He's gotten a starting job. He's playing very well. And now there's the all-out war about whether he's tall enough to be a center. It's the dumbest thing you've ever seen. But anyway, 3 months ago, I think I should say everyone, a lot of Hawks fans were looking at centers in the draft. A lot. Like most Hawks fans were like, all right, give me the centers. Who are they? And now it's still kind of happening, but to a lesser degree. And part of that's because the Hawks don't I shouldn't say they don't have needs. They have needs clearly. But if you're a believer in Okongwu, they don't have a glaring, like, quote unquote positional need on their roster. They kind of they got Trey, you got Jalen and Richeche, you got Dyson, and you got Okongwu. That's 5 guys. And we all understand this, Ben. You need more than 5 guys. But if you go 1 through 5, they kind of have 1 through 5 if you believe in Okongwu. But do you like, okay, for example, Derik Queen, who I think is going to go before the Hawks pick at this point. He seems to be fast rising as well. But like, do you think he would make sense with what the Hawks are building? You watch enough of the NBA, I can ask you this question. Like, he's an interesting player because there's some deficiencies. He also is not a 7-footer, which is what some Hawks fans want. But what do you think of him as a, let's just say top 10, top 12 pick in the draft and like a financial piece for somebody?
I have not actually seen any of this on Yeka debating, which I'm kind of proud of myself for. I've been really trying to stay off the timeline over the last month or so I had no idea. But I do know he's had some good games. He had like a 20 and 15 game last night, or
he's been playing. He's been putting up real numbers, and also the on-offs it's not just empty calorie stuff either. He's been playing well.
I am not of the belief that you should be okay with Onyeka as your long-term starting 5. I just don't think that's good process for a guy who I think is always going to be defensively limited and isn't a shooter. Like, I think he's a valuable player and can be a starter and can be a really good sixth guy as well, just because of all the things he does well, especially on offense. I would be going I still give the Hawks a center in a lot of the mocks that I do. Queen would be a weird one.
That's kind of why I'm asking you a little bit is that I think Queen is like the one that seems to be up there, either the highest or not versus Malawak, but he's also the most overlap with the Okongwu, which doesn't matter. But they have a lot of similarities. Definitely. Not exactly the same, but like they're both not the biggest guys. I think Okongwu was a much better defensive prospect than Queen was for Queen is for the record.
But unfortunately,
offensively, Queen's really good.
Okongwu's defensive career has gone much poorer than we maybe expected. But yeah, I think Queen is like not the cleanest fit, but if he fell to like 12 or 13 where the Hawks are picking, I don't think I'd be able to pass on him just given how talented I think he is.
Yeah.
Where Queen is a guy who's very volatile to me in that, like, I can absolutely imagine a world where he's just not in the NBA in 3 years or not a valuable player necessarily because he's a 6'9", older, non-shooting freshman center who doesn't play defense at the basket.
Yeah, he's by the way, he's 20 and a half already, which people don't really understand. I mean, I know the sickos do, but as a one and done, he's a freshman right now at 20 and a half. Yeah. Like he'll be 20, he'll be almost 21 at the draft.
20 and a half. He's, he's like half a year older than Colin Murray Boyles, but point being, I think I don't know why I Freudian slipped that. Queen is a player who I think is worth a bet because of just the high level stuff he does, whether that's his advantage creation for a big is incredible. He's an insane scorer at the rim. His playmaking is inconsistent, but when it's good, it is really, really good. And he also is like easily in like the worst context of his life. I guess his team thrill AAU teams weren't anything to write home about, but like going from Montverde to being the lead creator on a Maryland team that's like solid, but I don't think they're a high level tournament team or even close without Queen this year. Like he is their engine, and the way that he's been able to carry a high usage, score efficiently, and like defensively, I don't think he's hopeless. Like his feet are really quick, his hands are really quick. I think it's going to be mostly about motor and engagement, which of course is a concern, but like not a perfect Hawks fit. We're thinking like they need to get more size. I want more shot blocking for them, but also like the insanely awesome stuff you could do on offense with him and Trey and Jalen Johnson. Just like hard for me to really hate stacking a bunch of big, high feel, high skill players, especially when I think I would still like, I'm still wanting the Hawks in some form to have another like legit second creator. Cause like I love Jalen Johnson, but I don't think he's that guy in terms of like a legit second half court creator. Like, Dyson and Risa Share, I think offensively are both projected to be more complementary. Whereas Queen, I really do think could be like a legit creator. So I would definitely take him if the Hawks had the chance to, in the late lottery, and I'd be happy about it, even if there'd be some kinks to work out. So as long as they're taking him with the knowledge that like, we might have to work a little to make this work. And it's not just like we're just going to plug him in and, he's a Quinn Snyder big. He's like the least Quinn Snyder big of all time.
Yeah. It's interesting, like Quinn's type, but I think he likes Sanyaka from what I've heard, but it's interesting. And I do think Okongwu's been playing really well and showing the flashes of what he was built to be. When I was high on him, I had him in the top 5 in that class, and
I was high on him too. I don't remember where I had him exactly.
Maybe a little bit of a late breakout here. He's been healthy, which has been good, knock on wood. But yeah, I think Queen would be interesting, just kind of overlapping to some degree. This show is sponsored by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, at Upwork, they make hiring simple and affordable. You can find the right talent with Upwork across the board if you ever need help with a marketing campaign. Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results across the board. Also, the hiring process is fast and easy. Posting a job is free and simple. Within a day, multiple qualified candidates will be there to choose from, and it's also cost-effective. It's starting instead of hiring full-time. Upwork helps you find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale the businesses effectively that you're looking to do so, and also with high-end efficiency. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is upwork.com, UPWORK, upwork.com. That's upwork.com to connect with the top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
I am of the mind that the Hawks do need another big physical wing forward, like one more guy in the hopper there. They do have Ricochet, they do have Jalen. Dyson's obviously kind of a do-it-all in some respects, but they could use one more. Everybody could use one more forward, one more wing. What there isn't, maybe that's Murray Boyles, but I don't know who else there is in this class in their range.
It's not a great wing class.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
A great wing class. I mean, obviously, you have Cooper at the top, and then Ace too, who's not going to be there, but I also view as more of like a 4-off guy. And then you have Kneuppel, who I think would be good if they could get him. Like Trey Johnson is wingy, and then you're getting into like the Nique Cliffords, Miles Bird.
What about like Liam McNeeley? Where are you?
Not someone I want to touch in the top 20 personally. Okay. I think
because there's a split there too. Like I've seen him as high as in the top 10 in some places. And
I used to be. I was going to say people were, myself included, were a lot higher on him in college, but like I think, or in high school. But I do think the college sample is kind of exposed his limitations in a way that are pretty harmful. Like 6'7" wing, awesome movement shooter. None of that has changed. He's still a great foul drawer, crafty at the basket, but like 6'7" wing who doesn't really do much on defense outside of like be solid at positioning and is shooting under 50% at the rim. Like that's a really hard sell.
That's the weird thing about his finishing has just not been there.
I mean, it does make sense because like he's not that strong. He's not a vertically explosive athlete. And I think just the tall wings who can like do stuff are obviously valuable. I mean, the Hawks took one at number 1 last year. But
and they love him.
But Ricochet, I mean, even as someone who wasn't a Ricochet guy, like had clearly valuable things he did other than shooting. Like he was an awesome defensive player, especially on the ball. Like had some off-ball stuff about him. So yeah, no, McNeeley is not someone. I mean, as like a mid late first, I think it's fine just because teams can always use playable shooting wings, but in the lottery, no thanks. At 2025, I think it's fine.
Yeah, and part of the reason I brought him up too is beyond just the wing thing is that they do need another shooter at some point. Like they are shooting deficient. As much as I've really, Dyson's been so good, he's not a great shooter, and that's just the reality. And J.O. Johnson is a fine shooter for a 4, but not a plus shooter for a 4. So if you're already talking about you're below average in a couple spots, Akai was shooting more, but still is not a shooter at this point in time. So you could probably use another guy to space the floor a little bit. I do want to ask you about Asa Newell. There's a Georgia connection there. He's kind of a big in some respects. How do you think of how does he translate to the NBA? Because he's a guy I get questioned about, as you might imagine, a lot because Georgia fans are also Hawks fans, and he's a potential top 20 pick. So what do you see from him as far as what he's going to be at the NBA level even?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Newell, just because I do see some translation questions with him where he is kind of like Onyeka, a shorter big. I don't think he's as short as Onyeka, but he's probably
he's taller.
Like 6'10" without shoes, maybe would be my guess for Asa. Very productive college player, just really impressive finisher. Dunks the ball a lot, pretty mobile and versatile defender. I would actually probably be pretty okay with him for the Hawks if they could get him in the 20s. The issue is I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't view him as a lottery quality prospect just because I don't really see where any kind of upside comes from. His feel is very problematic. I think he's one of the lower feel bigs that I've scouted in quite a while. His shooting has gotten better, but I don't view his shooting as a plus thing for him. I think he can be solid as a spot up 3-point shooter, which definitely is something, but I don't view him as a high level shooter or anything. And then like he has some flashes of handling stuff, but pretty much everything you're betting on outside of just like finishing and rebounding are flashes. Like you're just hoping he puts it together, which maybe he can because he's young and productive. And I think he has a place in the league as a rotation big, as like a perimeter defender who can finish stuff, but I don't think he's a needle mover, especially for a Hawks team that I don't think he gives you anything new, really. He's probably going to be better on defense than Onyeka, and then again, as I said, I feel like Onyeka was a better defensive prospect than Asa. But
and is he? Do you think of Newell as is he just a center, or is there any non-center in him? Is that could he play with Onyeka, for instance, as an example?
The issue with that is I think he's probably best as a 4 on defense. But I think he's a 5 on offense. Like I think he's a pure 5 on offense.
That's kind of what I thought of. Those kind of guys. I don't tend to like those kind of guys very much.
Yeah, I mean, he'd have to get to a very like a pretty high level of shooting, which who knows, anything's possible. Just because so many centers these days are like dribble handoff hubs where they have to make decisions and process the floor, and like there's some flashes of Newell, passing the backdoor cuts and stuff, but overall, I don't really rate him highly as like an initiator big, even as a role player in that way, where I do think he can defend the 5 like at some in the regular season, but against like really good teams overall, like it's just not like there isn't a ton of precedent for guys who pass as little as he does, like with his height being successful. Like a sub 7% assist rate is just exceptionally low for a sub 7-footer. Like Malawash has, I think, a lower assist rate than him, but Malawash is a gargantuan person.
Yeah, he's a pure center.
Right. It's like pretty much the only players who ever end up being good who just never pass the ball are just these gigantic big men and nuclear shooters. And I don't think Asa is either of those things. I don't think anyone is really.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would really disagree with that, but yeah, like honestly, do think like if for some reason he's available like that late in the draft, I like in the late first round, I think he's a totally fine bet. But top 7, I think, especially in a draft as good as this one, there's just going to be so many other better options in terms of need and talent, I think, for the Hawks.
So one guy that is not super similar to Newell, but kind of is, I think you'll follow me here, is Danny Wolf. Yeah. Danny Wolf is not the same archetype as Newell, to be very clear, but kind of caught between positions. Danny Wolf is a 7-footer, but Danny Wolf is not going to anchor your defense at center. In fact, he's a pretty bad defensive player. But also is a 7-footer that can run a pick and roll, like as a ball handler, which is a very interesting skill set. And I've already said this on the show. I'll say it again now. I know I'm a Michigan guy. I don't always love Michigan prospects. Like I was not.
You think every Michigan guy is going to be?
Well, I don't like. I did like Kobe Buffkin, and I still believe in Kobe Buffkin to some degree if he ever stays on the court. But I won't list the guys I didn't like. But not every year do I like the Michigan prospect. It's just that's what it is. I'm actually kind of mixed on Danny Wolf. I think he's a first round pick, but I wouldn't be eager to take him in the top 20 unless it was the right situation. But I think you kind of see where I'm going here. Not necessarily him versus Asa Newell, but another guy who it's like, how is this supposed to work in the NBA? Do you think he can defend enough? Yeah. My whole thing is like, can he defend enough? And my answer is basically no. But maybe there's a spot where it kind of works.
I'd probably prefer Asa to Wolf just because Wolf is a pretty young sophomore, junior too. Like he's only 20, I think, right?
He is, I think he's 21 because he's
21. Yeah, still not.
He's younger,
old,
but he's not super old either. I was gonna say he feels older than he is because he's looks
no like Vlad Golden.
No, Vlad Gold is a shared interest of ours. We both like Vlad Gold. He's just very, very old. But no, I mean, truly, Wolf does some stuff as a pick and roll ball handler that 7-footers don't do. It's very interesting, and that's why I think there was in the middle of the year. I know you saw this. There was a lot of helium on Danny Wolf. It was like, oh, Danny Wolf's a lottery pick all of a sudden. It's like this happened, and it's cooled off since then, which I think is the right thing that happened. But it's just an odd fit. Maybe he's a guy, going back to the Hawks a little bit. Maybe he's a guy that would fit with a smaller unit around him, like if you like the Kongwu, or if you maybe with Jalen. Like Jalen's kind of the power forward archetype to put next to Danny Wolf, in that if it's ever going to work. A guy who can rebound next to him and defend a little bit next to him, but also I don't like it very much. At least with the Kings pick, Lakers pick, sure, 24th in the draft, it wouldn't bother me at all.
Like he's He's interesting because I do think there's like a pretty solid floor for bigs who handle like he can. I just don't think there's any kind of interesting ceiling with Wolf because he's a pretty middling athlete who doesn't create advantages really without a ball screen, which I feel like people like always like, oh, what if like Queen does? And it's like that. Queen is a legit primary creator guy,
Yeah,
and Wolf is very much not that. But he is like incredibly good at dribbling for a player of his size.
Yeah,
like
for a 7-footer. Yeah.
I think his shot is workable. I don't think he's like an exceptional shooter or anything, but he's willing to take kind of some off dribble stuff as people might have seen, and like his numbers aren't horrible or anything. But
I have a take on that, and I'm sure you're not going to be surprised. I think people think of Danny Wolf as tall white guy who played in the Ivy League and assume he's a shooter. And he's actually not.
Yeah,
and he's actually not. Like he can shoot a little bit, don't get me wrong, but he's not a shooter. That's not what he is. But most 7-footers who are first round draft picks who look like Danny Wolf, candidly, are probably going to be high end shooters. But he's not. Instead of having that, he does more of the creation stuff that you just mentioned. But you're right, it is kind of anchored to needing some help. Like you need a ball screen, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Like, I think he works he works very well with Golden.
Yes.
I think just because of Golden's ability to screen and to create advantages for Danny Wolf. I think Wolf is intriguing, and I agree with you. Like, not crazy excited about him as a top 20 pick, but I understand the appeal. Where defensively, like, he's honestly more similar. He's much more similar to Queen on defense than he is on offense. Where like he has some moments where he can move his feet on the perimeter, and I think there's a world where he could like defend fours okay, but yeah, just like the vertical pop, the awareness at the rim. I'm not so sure about his ability to be a legit 5-man on defense, and that's obviously hard for projecting these like big positional weirdos. But
yeah,
Wolf, again, I think Ace, like in the Wolf versus Asa comparison, like I think I probably just take Asa because of the tools and the age and stuff. But Wolf has like high level traits that a lot of players in this draft don't have. I mean, he has a lot of major weaknesses too, but like there's a place in the league for in a scaled down role for a big like him who can dribble and can pass like he can with enough shooting and scoring juice to do it in a complementary way. So I'm not a huge Danny Wolf guy, but I certainly do understand why people really like him. And the appeal is obvious, right?
All right, that is all for part 1 of this 2-part chat with myself and Ben Pfeifer about the NBA draft in the midst of March Madness. Part 2 should be available in the same podcast feed right now, so go ahead and subscribe to the show on Apple, on Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Please like this video as you're watching it. But again, stay tuned for part 2. Tell your friends about the podcast. Follow us on social media, etc. I appreciate listening to the show. We'll be back with part 2 just now, and in the meantime, we'll see you later on this week.